Let me ask you something. What would your life look like if you followed through on everything you said you would do? What if every morning you didn't hit the snooze button? What if every goal you set you actually finished? What if your standards weren't negotiable anymore? That's what this is about. Discipline. But not just discipline, unbreakable discipline. The kind of mental structure that doesn't bend when life throws chaos your way. The kind that doesn't rely on motivation or moods. This isn't about hype. It's about habits. Because people who live extraordinary lives don't do it by chance. They do it by commitment. The first thing you've got to understand is that discipline is not a gift. It's not something some people are just lucky to have. It's a skill. It's a decision. Every single day you're deciding who you are by what you tolerate, what you repeat, and what you prioritize. Discipline isn't loud. It's the quiet voice that tells you to get up when your feelings tell you to stay down. And that voice, you've got to train it. But here's the truth. Discipline doesn't survive in a toxic environment. You cannot plant seeds of greatness in poison soil. If you're constantly surrounded by distraction, by people who pull you away from your goals, by apps that hijack your time, then you're fighting an uphill battle. You need to make your environment frictionless for success. Stack the odds in your favor. Put your workout clothes next to your bed. Keep your goals visible. Eliminate energy leaks. Because you don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. Your systems are a reflection of your standards. And let's be honest, your standards shape everything. You're either living by high standards or you're negotiating with mediocrity every day. High standards mean doing the right thing, especially when it's hard, especially when no one's watching, because that's when your identity is being formed. Your future self is being sculpted by the decisions you're making when it would be easy to quit. But how do you stay consistent when everything inside you wants to take a break? Emotion. People think discipline is about logic. It's not. If it was, everyone would do it. You stay consistent because your heart is on fire with something bigger than you. When you connect the action to the meaning, you stop needing motivation. You start running on mission. Attach emotion to your habits. Don't just run to burn calories. Run to become who you were born to be. Don't just read to learn. Read to feed your mind so you can lead. And listen, don't underestimate the power of small wins. You want to build discipline? Start with something you can actually complete. Win the first 10 minutes of your day. Drink the water. Make the bed. Move your body. These are not minor tasks. They are the building blocks of momentum. And once momentum kicks in, discipline becomes easier. The reps get smoother. The resistance gets weaker. But here's the final truth. If you don't have a vision, none of this will last. You will burn out. You'll feel like you're doing hard things for no reason. Discipline without direction is just punishment. But discipline fueled by purpose, that's power. That's fire. That's fuel for life. So get clear. What are you building? Who are you becoming? Why does this matter? Make it personal. Make it urgent. Make it non-negotiable. Because the minute you decide that average is no longer acceptable, the second you stop making excuses and start making progress, that's when unbreakable discipline is born. And once you've built it, nothing and no one can take it from you. Discipline is not something you're born with. It's something you choose again and again, every day, every moment, every decision. You're either building the muscle of discipline or letting it atrophy. People often make the mistake of thinking discipline is this magical trait some people are just lucky to have. But it's not luck. It's not talent. It's not even about being naturally motivated. Discipline is a decision. And the people who seem unstoppable, the ones who always follow through, they've simply made that decision more often, more consistently, and with more commitment than others. You see, most people are waiting for a feeling to push them. They want to feel like it before they act. But if you live that way, you're a slave to your moods. Discipline isn't about how you feel. It's about what you decide. And every time you follow through on something you said you'd do, even when it's uncomfortable, even when you're tired, even when no one else is holding you accountable, you cast a vote for the kind of person you want to become. That identity builds slowly, rep by rep, moment by moment. And over time, those small decisions add up. They harden into character. That's where confidence comes from. That's where power comes from. Think about it. Every time you choose short-term comfort over long-term purpose, you weaken your relationship with yourself. But when you follow through, when you say, I'm going to do this, and you do it, you start to trust yourself on a deeper level. That self-trust becomes your foundation. You no longer need permission, applause, or reminders. You move because you decided. And that's how true freedom is built, through the discipline of follow through. No one drifts into greatness. No one stumbles into a meaningful life. It's built brick by brick through the thousands of small decisions you make when no one's watching. Discipline is the architecture of that life. Without it, your dreams stay stuck in your head. With it, they become real, tangible, alive. So stop waiting for the perfect mood. Stop waiting to feel ready. You become disciplined by doing disciplined things. Not once, not when it's convenient, but consistently. It won't be perfect. You'll mess up. But that's not the point. The point is to keep choosing the path that aligns with who you truly want to be. Because every time you do that, you're not just checking off a task, you're shaping your identity. You're making the decision that says, this is who I am now. And when that decision becomes who you are, that's when discipline becomes unbreakable. The willpower is limited. It fades. It gets drained. You wake up with a full tank, and by the time life throws a few distractions, temptations, and stresses your way, that tank starts to empty. That's why relying purely on willpower is a trap. The strongest people in the world aren't the ones with the most discipline in their head. They're the ones who built discipline into their environment, because the truth is simple. Your environment will beat your willpower if the two are in conflict. If your phone is loaded with distractions, if your fridge is filled with junk, if your friends mock your goals, then every time you try to make a disciplined choice, you're fighting a war against your surroundings. That's not strength. That's sabotage. Your brain will always look for the path of least resistance. If the gym is far away, the junk food is easy to grab, and your workspace is cluttered, guess what? You're not lazy. You're human. Your environment is simply making the wrong choice feel easier. So what's the solution? Make the right choice the path of least resistance. Design a space that makes winning easy. Don't just count on being strong enough to resist temptation. Remove the temptation. If you're trying to stay focused, put your phone in another room. If you want to eat clean, don't keep snacks in the house that pull you off track. If you want to write, set up a distraction-free space where inspiration flows. Set things up so that the behavior you want becomes automatic. This is where most people miss the point. They think discipline is about pushing through struggle, but real discipline is about removing unnecessary friction. It's not about fighting harder, it's about preparing smarter. When you change what surrounds you, you change what influences you. And that means fewer battles, fewer excuses, and far more consistency. Also, people matter. If you surround yourself with individuals who normalize procrastination, excuses, or mediocrity, you'll absorb that energy. You'll pick up those habits unconsciously. But if you're around people who challenge you, who live what they preach, who raise the bar, then discipline becomes the default. You don't have to force it. You live it because it's the standard in the room. At the end of the day, you can have the strongest intentions in the world, but if your environment keeps pulling you back, those intentions won't last. So don't just work on yourself, work on what's around you. Discipline doesn't live in isolation. It lives in the systems, the people, the spaces that either align with your goals or destroy them. Choose wisely. Build intentionally. Because your environment will either hold you back or pull you forward. Your standards are the invisible force behind every result in your life. What you accept is what you get. What you tolerate becomes your reality. Most people think discipline starts with motivation, but it actually starts with standards. The line you draw in the sand that says, this is who I am, and this is what I will no longer accept. When your standards are low, you don't even need to fail. Your life will quietly drift into mediocrity. But when your standards are high and non-negotiable, everything changes. There's a powerful shift that happens when you stop treating discipline as something you try and start treating it as something you live. You begin to realize that how you do anything is how you do everything. If you cut corners in one area, it starts to bleed into other areas. If you're okay with being inconsistent in the small things, eventually you'll be inconsistent when it matters most. So raising your standards isn't about being perfect. It's about refusing to break promises to yourself even when no one else sees it. The people who achieve at the highest level don't do so because they're always motivated. They do it because their standards won't allow them to settle. It's not about pushing harder. It's about accepting less nonsense from yourself. You stop negotiating with your goals. You stop giving yourself the option to quit. You don't miss the workout, not because it's easy, but because missing it is simply not who you are anymore. Every time you raise your standards, you redefine your identity. You're saying to the world and to yourself, I no longer operate at that level. I've upgraded. And once you believe that, your actions follow. Discipline becomes less about struggle and more about alignment. You're not fighting yourself, you're becoming yourself. But here's the real power. When your standards shift, so do your expectations. Not just for yourself, but for what you allow into your life. You stop allowing toxic energy. You stop surrounding yourself with people who drain you. You stop settling for good enough. And the universe has a way of meeting you at the level you demand, not the level you wish for. So if you keep accepting less than you deserve, you'll keep getting it. So ask yourself, what are you currently tolerating that's keeping you stuck? What low standard have you made comfortable? Because nothing will change until you raise that standard and make it non-negotiable. Discipline is born in that moment. The moment you say no more and mean it. The moment you stop hoping for change and start demanding it from yourself. That's when everything begins to shift. That's when discipline becomes part of who you are. Not because it's easy, but because it's the only level you're willing to live at anymore. People think that if they just understand the logic behind discipline, they'll suddenly be consistent. But discipline isn't born from logic. It's born from emotion. It doesn't come from what makes sense. It comes from what matters. Because at the end of the day, we don't take action based on what we know. We take action based on what we feel. You can know exactly what to do. You can have the perfect plan, the smartest strategy, the cleanest blueprint. But if your heart's not in it, you won't follow through. That's why the most disciplined people aren't necessarily the smartest. They're the ones who are emotionally connected to why they do what they do. They've tied their habits to something deeper, something personal. It's not about checking off tasks or grinding for the sake of grinding. It's about who they're becoming, what their future demands, and what it costs if they don't show up. That emotional connection creates fire. It gives purpose to the process and meaning to the pain. Think about it. When you've ever truly followed through, in the gym, in business, in life, it wasn't just because it made sense. It was because it meant something. Maybe it was to prove to yourself you could do it. Maybe it was to show your family what's possible. Maybe it was to break a cycle that's haunted your bloodline. Whatever it was, it had emotion behind it. That's the fuel most people ignore. They look for motivation and forget to look inward. So if you're struggling with discipline, stop asking what you need to do. Start asking why you must do it. Why does it matter? What's at stake if you don't change? Who will suffer if you stay stuck? Who will rise if you finally break through? Get emotional about it. Feel the pain of staying where you are. Visualize the cost of living beneath your potential. Let it sting. Let it burn. Then use that burn to build something real. When you find a reason that moves you emotionally, discipline stops feeling like a chore. It starts feeling like a responsibility. You don't need to hype yourself up every day. The meaning does that for you. The vision takes over. Your heart leads and your habits follow. So don't chase discipline with your head. Connect with your heart. The mind will always find excuses. The heart finds a way. And when you build that bridge between what you do and why it matters, You don't have to force discipline anymore. It flows. It becomes a natural extension of who you are, driven by purpose, powered by emotion, and aligned with your highest self. One of the greatest lies people believe is that massive change comes from massive action alone. But in reality, it's the small, consistent wins, the little daily choices that build the muscle of discipline over time. Micro wins might seem insignificant in the moment, but they are the foundation of unbreakable self-control. Every time you do something small that aligns with who you want to become, you're not just checking off a box. You're casting a vote for your future identity. Waking up on time, making your bed, saying no to distractions, finishing that last set at the gym, sticking to your plan even when no one's watching. Those are the victories that matter, not because they look impressive to the world, but because they prove something to you. They reinforce the belief that you are someone who follows through. They build internal certainty. And once that certainty grows, so does your discipline. The truth is, momentum doesn't come from doing everything perfectly. It comes from just getting one thing right and then stacking another on top of it. You don't need to overhaul your life overnight. You need to win the moment you're in. And when you start collecting wins, no matter how small, you begin to shift your self-image. You stop seeing yourself as someone who starts and stops. You start seeing yourself as someone who finishes, someone who keeps promises, someone who doesn't wait to feel ready but acts regardless of emotion. That's the power of repetition. Every rep counts. Discipline is a muscle. And like any muscle, it doesn't grow by doing something once. It grows by doing it consistently, especially when you don't feel like it. That's when it matters most. Anyone can act when they're inspired, but it's in those quiet moments, when you're tired, when no one's clapping for you, when it would be easy to skip, that you earn your next level. Most people never reach their potential because they underestimate the value of small things done consistently. They think if it's not dramatic, it doesn't matter. But that's wrong. It's the compound effect that transforms your life. You can't see it immediately, but day after day, those small wins begin to stack. They build habits. They build self-belief. And eventually, they build a life that most people only dream of. So focus on the next win, not the next month, not the next year, just the next right decision. And then do it again, stack it, repeat it. Because the secret to lasting discipline isn't found in big moments. It's found in mastering the little ones again and again until your consistency becomes your identity. Discipline without direction eventually collapses. It turns into exhaustion, frustration, and burnout. You can force yourself to wake up early, train hard, work long hours. But if there's no compelling reason behind it all, the fire dies out. You begin to ask yourself, what's the point? And that question is dangerous if you don't have a powerful answer. Because discipline without vision feels like punishment. But discipline with vision, that feels like purpose. That feels like fuel. Most people think they struggle with discipline, but what they're really lacking is clarity. They're grinding day after day, doing the same routines, forcing habits, and pushing through, but there's no image in their mind of where it's all leading. That absence of vision creates internal conflict. You can only push yourself for so long on sheer will. Eventually, you need meaning. You need something bigger to pull you forward, something that excites you, scares you, and stretches you all at once. Vision gives your discipline a direction. It transforms I have to into I choose to. Suddenly, you're not working out just to work out. You're training for the future version of yourself. You're not saving money just to save. You're building freedom. You're not waking up early because someone told you to. You're doing it because your mission demands it. That kind of alignment makes discipline feel less like a struggle and more like a statement. I'm becoming who I was meant to be. But vision can't be vague. It has to be specific, emotional, and deeply personal. If it doesn't stir something inside you, it won't sustain you. You need to see it, feel it, believe in it, before it ever exists. That emotional connection to your vision is what helps you stay grounded when life gets chaotic. When distractions hit, when results are slow, when you feel like giving in, vision reminds you why you can't. And here's the truth most ignore. Without vision, even the strongest discipline eventually runs dry. You start going through the motions. Your habits become hollow. You show up, but there's no power behind it. And that's where people begin to break. Not because they're weak, but because they're disconnected. They're missing that inner why that makes the effort matter. So take the time to define it. What are you building? Who are you becoming? Why does this matter right now? Let that vision sink into your heart. Let it become your compass. Because once you know where you're going and why it matters, discipline becomes less about force and more about flow. You don't have to convince yourself to keep going. Your vision will carry you. And in that state, discipline is no longer a grind. It becomes a gift, a pathway to something greater, something real, something yours